This is just fucking cool, to be honest. Uh, Robert Englund, the guy who played Freddy Krueger, is finally getting his own Hollywood star. I had no idea that this motherfucker didn't even have it. But, I mean, he is just so close to retirement. I just, this, all of these guys, really, like all of these people who put so much time and effort into, like, horror and so much time and effort into all of their roles that they did, you know, like uh someone who just recently passed, you know, they had the Candyman. This boy right here, for those who don't know, he did his last role in that oh, what was it called? Oh, well, we can pull it up right here. But there you go. November 6th. But the Final Destination, he had that last role where they just let him talk into the camera. I think about that a lot. These guys, specifically, when you like look at their careers, and it's every guy like this that does this. Um, Wishmaster. I think about their careers, and I think about the kind of careers that they could have had if they didn't necessarily care as much about being a very specific person. And there's a lot of dudes like this. He's one of them. But I think it's sad because it's the end of an era. There's not many people like Tony Todd and Robert Englund and all these people. Like when you have like there's all these fucking actors um that you kind of can't replace. Danny Trejo's one, but there's like no one to replace him. Yeah, Tom Savini, Robert Patrick, but he had a career. He had a big career. But I would just say that there's just some of these dudes who have dedicated their lives to being these very specific kind of people, and there's just no one there's no one to really replace them. you know like we don't really have a lot of newer people coming up that want to be in these kind of roles. Bruce Campbell's another one. He had a bigger career than most. um yeah, I just think about all these people who had smaller careers, but it's just because they didn't want to leave that comfort zone of their fans. They knew what their fans wanted. Warwick Davis. Warwick Davis is another one. Um, he did all the Leprechaun and, obviously Willow. Then he was in Harry Potter, obviously. I think about these guys, and I really do think where we're headed with movies and who can replace these guys. Who can, there's a difference between like Michael Myers and like Jason and stuff where they have the mask and Maybe you're not really connected with that character as much. But for a lot of these dudes, they've made this like their whole identity. But like when I'm sitting here and I'm thinking back and I'm like, okay, like who's still doing this? Who do we have left? And really, since Rob Zombie has stopped making really so many movies and stuff, Spalding died, and uh, I just can't think of many people who are coming up that fill these roles after these guys are gone. Because a lot of people would say, oh, well, it's all moving to streaming, it's all different, it's not exactly the same. But it's kind of sad because we're really losing these hardcore. I think what I'm trying to think about is like these hardcore character actors who said, I am this thing and I do it the best and I play this, and I'm going to hyper focus my career on being the best this I can be, whatever that thing is. And it's just kind of crazy because I don't know where we're headed. Like we're not going to have the same connections with these kind of actors and the same love and reverence for these guys 20 years from now, for example. 20 years from now, pretty much all these guys will be completely dead. Like all of them. It's just, it can't not be that way, And it's sad to think about because there's a lot of these hardcore character actors. I mean, even kind of Jim Carrey was like that in a way. And if he didn't end up being so popular, he would have been right along with these guys. Because it's that same kind of energy, it's that same kind of mentality, it's that same kind of, And I don't know why these kind of guys get stuck like this. And I know that this wasn't really the point of the whole video, but I feel like, it's my channel. I like having these discussions. And I think some people would be interested in having this discussion or hearing about it. And, if you do, hey, put it in the comments. I'd love to know your thoughts. But I just think as an industry and as like a whole thing, I just don't know where they're headed. We got the guy who plays the Terrifier now. But like when I'm really thinking about it, it's like, who do we have? We don't even really have these long form, 1, 2, 3, 4. You look at Saw's finished pretty much. Hellraiser's pretty much finished. That guy's not doing that anymore. It's like I really can't think of I really just can't think of anything. A lot of them are just like one-off pieces where they play a character and move on. I know I just feel like we're really gonna miss that aspect of movies. I think it's gonna leave this kind of hole, and especially it's gonna hurt horror. I think in the next 20 years, horror is gonna fade, and kind of it's already has become something else. Like what we've honestly lost a lot of slashers. Vampires have gone downhill in a spectacular way. Werewolf movies, good lord. I mean, since the 2000s, straight downhill. The zombie movies were hanging in there for quite a while, but I think with, The Walking Dead and some of the fatigue, and I know 28 years later, has tried to kind of swing that back. But overall, I'm telling you, it just doesn't seem sustainable that horror continues in a good direction. We're really only going to be left with these kind of half-baked Um, like the few horror movies that I've seen that have been really spectacular have been very specific, I should say. A lot of them, the plots of them are disconnected and wacky and like not really well thought out or anything, or uh like they got, if you want to include Hereditary in that pile, I would include Hereditary. It's very wacky, very disconnected. The storyline doesn't make too much sense. You think you're watching one movie, then it changes to this, then that, then this, and then it all ends up like, oh, it's something completely different, and you're left just sitting there going like, no, it was good. It was. But like, what happened to our horror? You know, at some point horror movies just started to shift into this new um, kind of formula. And they had a formula before, but it wasn't so mundane or, really our horror has shifted into, this is now a thriller and not a horror anymore. And I just don't know where it's headed, you know? And I miss these like hardcore character actors who really gave a performance and kept you invested, even though like we're supposed to like be against the villain almost. And they had lore and they had backstory and they had stuff going forward. Because I don't know if any of you remember, but I'm just gonna go down on a limb here and assume that my audience is a little bit older. Okay, okay, and I'm gonna say this: Freddy Krueger had a point at which it was amazing. It was imaginative. It was well written, well acted. It was taken seriously. It was making big money. And at some point, they rebooted it, especially without him. And they changed the storyline and they kept fucking stuff up. And it's just like, dude, come on. Come on. And a part of me sees that a lot of those things have happened like that, and it sucks. When we think about Michael Myers specific, even the second movie started to fuck with the formula. They had a perfect setup, and Quentin Tarantino has given interviews about this, about how much he hated the second one because of the way that they changed everything, and he's right. And I know that this video was really supposed to be about Robert Englund, getting his Hollywood star, and it is befitting that it is on Halloween, and I'm so happy for him. But I think what it signifies for me is an end of an era. It's an end of an era that we just will not get back. Just like we had those 80s sword and sorcery, and you could even go farther than that, go all the way up to 2000s, and we've just lost sword and sorcery. We've lost original sci-fi experiences. Everything has to follow these formulas lately, where it has to be you can write these, anyone can write these, and that's the problem. Is I think that's what's happening, is a lot of companies need content and they get people to write them that aren't amazing. When you look at something like Interstellar, and you say, wow, the music was on point, the acting was on point, the effects were on point, the budget, every script, every word, every single thing in that movie, down to the sweat on the character's brow, was perfect. And when you look at all the way back and you look at stuff like Space Odyssey, um, it's the same thing. Everything was so perfect. And you can make that kind of connection through time and look at like the parallels between those. But what you see now is the reason that we look at Interstellar with such fucking reverence. Obviously, it did everything perfect, but look at the reality of what it's against. You know, look at so many movies that come out that you just I just don't see it. I don't see where we're headed movie wise in a good direction. And I know that a lot of the money, because I like movies, but obviously a lot of the money has been diverted toward TV shows. They want TV shows, they want long form, they want, why sell you a 2-hour movie when they could sell you 12-hour show? 12 episodes, 10 episodes, 10-hour show, we'll call it. And a lot of the good stuff that you watch nowadays is being kind of diverted onto that show platform. But another thing that's happening is a lot of them are canceled. A lot of movies don't get sequels anymore. A lot of stuff just does not continue. And the problem is like, you can't get invested and all this other stuff. And I think that overall, that's what I'm trying to say with this is it's really an end of an era where we have Class A people who care not really about their career. They care about these characters that they are associated with and care about. And I know that we have people like Robert Downey Jr. who cared about Iron Man in his way. And I know that you have those people like that. And I'm not discounting those people. I'm not discounting good actors from being good. But these kind of guys, the relatable everyman that just gets to play his creepy little dude on screen, we're not going to have that 20 years. Not in a big way like we used to. And I think it's sad. I think it sucks cock. Because, there's going to be an era in the future where I'm going to be very old and I'm going to be sitting with my kid watching his movie saying, hey, yeah, it was a good era, and that's past now. And we just don't have anything like it, I think risks in the movie industry are very hard to come by. But in the same breath, they're willing to throw away $200 million on some dumb fucking idea that they know that no one wants just to push a message. They won't just take a risk and give us something that we actually want. Doesn't make a lot of sense. We're living in a wacky time period. And I think that the A24 is taking a lot of risks. The studio A24, and I think that they're doing really good. I think they're coming out with a lot of bangers, but we'll just have to see what happens in the future. I just kind of feel like these character actors and these people that mean a lot to us, that's all coming to an end, and we're not making the same connections. And Hollywood really isn't giving opportunities to people to play these characters out. And really the only opportunities that people are getting to play like multiple characters in a movie in a line is, superhero movies and shit like that. But those also reboot so often. It's crazy. But, at least we'll have Fast and the Furious 20 to look forward to. Don't even worry about it. Now that Rock has lost all that weight, we will be doing just fine. And geriatric Jason Statham. No. Well, anyway, I'm fucking around, but I am saying that it's sad to think about. I guess just for me. Anyway, I reply to all the comments. If you want to talk about this, I'd love to hear what you have to say. I'd love to hear your favorite horror movie, the stuff that you really thought of, when I was talking about this. And I'd love to have a genuine conversation on YouTube. I know it's not common, but hey, it's my channel. Do the fuck I want. See you in the next one.